It is 5 days from Election Day. I've just returned from some of the big battleground states, and here's what seems to be going on the right that the Beltway media has not figured out is going on the right.
Anybody want to tell me why you guys support Joe Miller, what it is you like about him?
Pro-life!
Sure.
In case that was hard to understand, in response to my open question about why they were supporting Joe Miller, one of his supporters responded by yelling with a lot of enthusiasm, "Pro-life! Joe Miller is pro-life," volunteering to me that abortion is her motivation for supporting Joe Miller. That same group of supporters also volunteered to me that they support Mr. Miller because of a perceived threat to their gun rights, although they could not identify what exactly that threat was. Good luck, you guys.
Thanks, Lisa confirmed Eric Holder, and we disagree with that.
She what?
Voted to confirm Eric Holder.
And why are you against that?
Because he's the most anti-gun attorney general this country has ever had.
Oh, what's he done against guns?
Well, at this point, it's what hasn't he done against guns? Let's ask that question. Let's look at what his voting record beforehand. I'm sure you got...
Eric Holder wasn't an elected official.
No, just all I'm asking is look at what his record is with Obama. Then look at what he's.
What's he done on guns that you're upset about, though? Just so I
honestly, I don't know enough about him to answer that truthfully, Rachel.
Can I just ask why are you upset about Eric Holder?
Because he's anti-gun.
What has he done that's anti-gun?
I don't have all the facts, but I know that he is anti-gun.
This is not what the national narrative about what's going on in these elections says is going on in these elections. But everywhere you look, if you care to look, you'll find that it's 90s-style social wedge issues that are driving all these hard-right conservative campaigns this year. If you ask the candidates themselves, their enthusiasm on those issues is obvious as well.
How do you feel about abortion? Are you for abortion, against abortion? If you're for it, in what instances would you allow for abortion?
I am pro-life, and I'll answer the next question. I don't believe in the exceptions of rape or incest.
Colorado's Republican Senate candidate Ken Buck, not even waiting for the follow-up question, seizing the opportunity and volunteering how hardline his position is on criminalizing abortion. Also, in my bizarre, fast-motion steeplechase interview with Joe Miller in Anchorage, I asked him an open question about how important social issues are to his campaign. I did not ask him specifically about his views on abortion, but he went right to it and volunteered.
So, I've been talking with your supporters since I've been here. One of the things that I did not know to expect before I got here is how important social issues are to them. You really run as a constitutional conservative, fiscal conservative. People keep raising the issue of abortion, marriage, other social issues like that to me. How central are those to your campaign, or to your view?
Well, I think the life issue is very important. I believe in defending innocent life. I'm a pro-life candidate, the only unequivocally pro-life candidate in this race.
The coat of paint that's been put over conservative politics this year is that it's all about small government. And I understand that's an appealing message. If I were the conservative movement choosing an attractive branding strategy for this year, that's probably what I would choose too. It sounds great. But quite literally, one follow-up question is all it takes to show that the small government libertarian impulse devolve everything to the states theme this year is just messaging. It is not really what these candidates are offering.
In terms of gay rights issues, there's a man on your campaign payroll who runs a website called hopeforhomosexuals.com. His name is Terry Moffat. Do you agree with him that homosexuality can be changed, it can be cured?
Our perspective, and we've answered this question before, is that it really is a state issue. As to how those issues want to be resolved, it should be handled at the state level.
Do you think there should be a constitutional amendment banning gay marriage?
That's up to the people. If you got a 3/4 vote ratified, I'd vote for it.
You would vote for it?
Yeah, I would.
So gay rights issues should be handled at the state level, except the federal government should ban gay rights. It does not matter how you feel about gay rights. A candidate who says they should be decided at the state level and they should be banned federally is a candidate who makes no sense. That's like hosting a clam bake to announce that you're keeping kosher. That's beating up the guy who doesn't believe you're a pacifist. That's like saying, I am humble. It makes no sense. That interview was awkward for reasons besides the fact that we were running down escalators and through doors and lobbies and into cars while doing it. The interview was also awkward because limited federal government is Joe Miller's brand as a candidate, but it is clear that that is not what he's actually proposing to do in office. You can't simultaneously believe that gay rights issues should all be left to the states and also that there should be a federal constitutional amendment banning gay rights. On abortion, it's the same kind of awkwardness. The message coming from these candidates is small government, limited federal power. power. But what they're actually proposing is giant government with newly radical, intrusive power. Joe Miller, Ken Buck, Christine O'Donnell, Sharon Angle, Rand Paul, branded as the most small government of all of the supposedly small government candidates, all proposing a government big enough to monitor every pregnancy in the country, to intervene even after a rape, to force the rape victim to carry to term the pregnancy resulting from the rape or from incest. No matter what the woman wants to do, no matter what her doctor thinks she should do, no matter what her family wants to do, these candidates want a government big enough to impose its own decision by force in those cases. The messaging on the right this year is that it's all about limited government, freedom, small government, fiscal responsibility. The problem with conservative branding this year should have been apparent at the outset. Even if you didn't get the whole social issues thing, you might have noticed that Republicans this year were trying to sell themselves as fiscal conservatives who also want to add massively to the federal deficit.
You want to extend all the Bush tax cuts, which would add $4 trillion to the deficit. You say balance the budget by cutting spending. Question, as a bottom line businesswoman, where are you going to find $4 trillion to cut?
I think we ought to ban earmarks. I think we ought to give citizens the opportunity to designate up to 10% of their federal income tax toward debt reduction.
You could cut all of that out. It wouldn't be anywhere close to $4 trillion. Where are you going to get that kind of money if you extend all of the Bush-era tax cuts? And that doesn't even that only adds to the deficit. That doesn't even deal with the deficit we already have.
Well, of course, first, the thing that we need to do to deal with our debt and our deficit is to both cut spending and grow the economy.
Well, let me ask you a specific question, because I still haven't gotten many specifics from you on how you're going to cut $4 trillion and even more out of the budget. You tell me specifically, what are you going to do to cut the billions, the trillions of dollars in entitlements? Or what benefits are you going to cut? What eligibility are you going to change?
You know, Chris, I have to say, with all due respect, you're asking a typical political question.
Just as it is not really about being fiscally conservative, it is also not really about small government. What is firing up support for these candidates on the right is an old familiar list of social wedge issues. Gods, guns, and gays, right? It's abortion rights, it's the homosexual agenda, it's they're coming to take your guns, although we don't really know how, we just believe that. When Democratic candidates zero in on that, when they get it, when they stop buying the bullpucky branding that bears no resemblance to what these candidates actually stand for, they have been able to nail their Republican opponents for these social issues. They're the culture war radicalism. Case in point, Democrat Michael Bennet, given the opportunity to ask his own questions of Republican Ken Buck in their last debate, asked Ken Buck this.
Since Ken has supported criminalizing abortion in cases of rape and incest, my question is, who's going to go to jail, Ken?
When Democrats stop buying the whitewash, when they get that their opponents this year are old-school culture war, wedge issue, gods, guns, and gays, Pat Robertson, Jerry Falwell, Jesse Helms types, they're finding that Republicans are pretty vulnerable on those issues. Because the country's just not like that anymore, if it ever was. Even if the Beltway narrative doesn't yet own up to this, God, guns, and gays are driving conservative candidacies this year. Small government and reducing the deficit, my foot.
Suppose Senator John Doe puts forth a constitutional amendment that would outlaw abortion, even in cases of rape or incest, and he asked you to attend the announcement and support him in that. Would you do it?
I would. Yes, a proposal like that, I would stand by it.
Let's be completely clear about the facts here. There is no place in the world and no time in history where restricting women's reproductive rights makes a people or a nation more free or more equal. These extreme positions on abortion are, without any question, a war on American girls and women, and the fact that there are women who are both complicit and participatory in it is really neither surprising nor unprecedented. It has always been true, and it is incredibly important that we recognize that despite the fact that we can be very proud of these women and as politicians, that the question is, how do women as citizens fare on the other side of them either being elected or not elected?